Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you another Magic the Gathering story. Today we continue with the lore of Crimson Vow as the wedding of Olivia and Edgar is underway. Their union would spell doom for Innistrad, but the new vampire queen made a crucial error, adding one Sorin Markov to the guest list. Sorin stares down Olivia from her high perch and defiantly stands against her. He has already caused quite the commotion before the ceremony, and now an all-out brawl is about to take place. But Sorin isn't the only unruly guest. Others plan to crash this exclusive party. Angels and ghosts both look to bring this unholy union to an end. This is Chapter 8 of Crimson Vow's story, written by Arsenault Rivera. Forever hold your peace. Remember guys, if you're enjoying these videos, support the content by hitting the like button and subscribing. If you want to catch the previous chapters of Crimson Vow's story, you can click on the annotation appearing right now, or you can find a link in the description below. And now, let's get into the lore. So, I just have a question, says Chandra. Arlen smirks, standing outside the gates. They've had little in the way of things to do. A new set of guards replaced the old, but they're no more talkative. What's on your mind? It's a vampire wedding, right? Right, says Kaya, sensing danger. A vampire wedding. Do you think there's cake in there? Adeline half groans, half laughs. Kaya pinches the bridge of her nose. Teferi's shoulders rise and fall with his quiet chuckle. Arlen thinks for a moment. There has to be, right? For the thralls? I can't imagine they feed their servants, no, Kaya says. Teferi, have you ever been to one of these before? Not to a vampire wedding, no, but... Something similar? Adeline asks. Something similar, Teferi says. He rubs at his chin, then shrugs with a smile. But that's the thing about weddings. No matter the traditions, some things stay the same. They're all about bringing people together. Even the vampires? Asks Chandra. Teferi nods. Even vampires. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad when they got in. Until then, they'd have to keep freezing their toes off. His preternatural senses alert him to the incoming thrust, a split second before it would have taken his head. A golden spear comes into view from behind him. What a dirty trick, to catch him like this. But perhaps a gift in disguise. He is going to need a weapon after all. He snaps the spearhead off its shaft, then pulls. Before the spearman can recover his balance, Sorin wheels around, driving the sharpened blade into the recesses of the man's armpit. Bone grinds against metal. It doesn't stop the spearman, but Sorin's magic does. A single held glance is enough to freeze him in place and turn him into a shield. Guards rarely work alone. This one is no exception. A swordsman is next to try his luck. His weapon heavier than anything a human could manage. A wicked animal grunt heralds the crunch of impact against his captive's armor. Sorin raises a brow. What was that thing? More cudgel than blade. If Sorin had a say in the matter, he'd pick something with better balance. But he doesn't have any say in the matter. They took his sword from him when they chained him. This will have to do. He hurls the bleeding captive towards the swordsman. In an unnatural instant, he's behind the swordsman. Another sees him snapping the man's neck. Sorin tears the sword away. Yes, the weight is all wrong, and no wonder. It's thick as his hand and encrusted with gold. Disgusting, truly disgusting. Which means it's the perfect weapon to kill Olivia. 3 more fall in quick succession, crushed beneath the weight of the new weapon. He doesn't pay them much attention. His captors don't matter anymore, only the woman in charge. 5 more guards are closing in. He has time for one cut. It isn't going to be a beautiful one, not with this behemoth. Still, nothing else matters. Not what might happen after this, not the Moonsilver Key, not the Eternal Night, and not the abject horror on his grandfather's face. This is far more personal. Olivia knows it too, the instant they lock eyes. She grips the Moonsilver Key tighter than ever, as if the power locked within it might save her. Sorin raises the sword. Muscle and weight carry it on its dread arc downward, closer and closer to Olivia's flying form. No matter, He's stepping into the swing enough to make up the distance. He's going to end this here and now. At least, he'd like to. A flash of light throws him off. The starburst tip of the blade glazes Olivia's chiffon gown and gloves. Grasping for the now falling key, Olivia is furious, even more so when it lands out of her grasp. Attacking a bride on her wedding day? I knew you were rude, but this? We'll need to construct a whole new word for how rude this is. She sneers down at him. His grandfather's hand lands on his shoulder. Sorin, this is more important than you could ever imagine. We need this. The key. My word, what is that? He doesn't have to look away to see it. Right below Olivia's feet, the moonsilver key glows with an unnatural light. There, at the altar, a geist of some sort, bursting from the key. No, not a geist, something else. He's known things like this on other planes. This is someone's spirit, separated from their body. A witch, by the shape of her headdress. Who invited you? Olivia snaps. The spirit turns toward her, brows knit over spectral eyes. You did. Ghostly flowers entwine about the witch's arm. They grow, blossom, and die all in an instant. The spirit studies this with some interest. A simple gesture, the vines join the flowers. In only a few seconds, she's grown herself a staff, one whose many branches glow with purpose. She looks toward the angel hanging in the center of the room like a harvest-tide decoration. Disgust and horror mingle on her face. Understanding replaces it, and her burning eyes alight on Olivia Voldaren. You would stoop so low as this. Edgar's grip tightens on Sorin's shoulder, but his words only drive a further wedge between them. Olivia, you must stop her! Sorin shoves his grandfather aside. He tells himself that it isn't really Edgar talking, as if that will make it hurt less somehow. Still, one thing is clear. If Olivia has to stop the spirit, then he has to stop Olivia. With all the speed he can muster, he dashes between her and the key, meeting her head-on charge with a wild slash. Even the bite of the blade on her outstretched arms isn't enough to stop her. She keeps coming. He keeps fighting back. Sorin throws his weight toward her. A crude shove, anything to buy the spirit the time it needs. A bolt of soft, verdant light over his shoulder tells him he's successful. Olivia's claws rake his cheek, then dig in, holding his face in a bizarre parody of a loving stepmother. The fire burning in her eyes is going to be hard to extinguish. Whatever that spirit's up to, it better be good. But he hears something then, a sound that fills him with hope even as it dredges up horrible memories in his mortal life. The holy flutter of an angel's wings. He doesn't know what's coming, not exactly, but he has an idea. That bolt from earlier must have cleansed the bindings keeping Sigarda in place. Sorin smiles right back in Olivia's face. It's worth the pain of her nails digging in deeper. I think your little party's over, he says. And he watches, delighted, as her eyes leave his to regard something behind him. Sorin throws her away, turning to face the rising angel. Making an angel is much like making stained glass. You have to know what she will be before you can begin. Sorin did not make Sigarda, but he knew her. And in the days before he made Avacyn, the days when he realized this was the solution he'd spent so much time seeking, he studied her. Where Bruna was thoughtful and reserved to a fault, Sigarda never let the perfect become the enemy of the good. She acted when she knew who was on the side of good and who was on the side of evil. Yet she had none of Gisella's bluster, none of her fire and brimstone approach to the sinners. The iron framework keeping Sigarda together was an unabashed love of humankind. He had wanted the same for Avacyn, or at least something similar to that love, if he couldn't create it outright. Oh, there were differences. Sigarda felt too deeply, for instance, often offering mercy where ruthlessness might have better served the people of Innistrad. She was too emotional, he thought. That got in the way of her executing her duties. But looking at her now, framed by the Voldaren stained glass window, Sorin realizes it's better that he didn't make Sigarda. He never would have imbued her with this much righteous wrath. Blood streaks her wings, the air around her shimmering with golden energy. Every cut he dealt her in their fight weeps anew. But there are more, too, and he wonders just how it was that Olivia captured her. Whatever happened, they're about to be repaid tenfold. He looks down upon the congregated masses with pure, unbridled disdain. Even the oldest of the vampires quiet at the sight of her, a new symbol for something they once feared. Sigarda spreads her wings. A shock of white energy forms around her. "All of you are guilty," speaks the angel. Sorin takes a breath. It isn't enough to prepare him for what comes next. She's bright as the dawn, bright as alabaster, bright as hope, too bright to behold. Holy light blazes against his eyes. The stained glass behind her took years to bring to fruition. So too the panels that line the walls. How many months, how many years, how many lives went into the chandelier over their heads? It is impossible to know. Even he cannot fathom the collected years of labor represented by Olivia's twisted collection. All of it, every year, every month, every hour, shatters in an instant. The light dazzles him, but he can see the cracks as they form. Veins of fire against the glass. He can't bring himself to look away even as the light sears him. There is something beautiful in all this. The larger shards, each a mirror, reflecting the eternal between them. The smaller shards, deadly snow, droplets of blood, a blasphemous rain upon the congregation. And then, the force hits him. Chaos erupts like a spear through the Voldaren Manor. An explosion of energy throws him off his feet. Before he knows what's happening, he's flung into a fountain of blood. And he is one of the lucky ones. Sangromancy allows him to make a shield from the falling blood to protect him from the incoming shards. Not everyone else has this skill. All around him, the partygoers like pincushions. Sorin stands among them. In that moment, he notices two things. First, that Olivia and his grandfather are, unfortunately, mostly unharmed. Second, the glass is not the only thing that shattered. Chandra has 1,000 questions, Adeline has 500 answers, about 200 guesses, and figures the others can make up the rest. Outside of Voldaren Manor, she perches her head on her hand and watches Chandra talk. No matter how awful the circumstances, no matter how vile the place only a stone's throw away, the light of Chandra's eyes is beautiful. And it's because she's looking so closely that Adeline sees it. A new light, bright gold, one that gilds Chandra's cheeks. It looks almost angelic. Wait, what's that? Adeline looks over toward the manor, the lights coming from inside the building. The invitation wards are crumbling. Chandra grins. Looks like the party's getting started. And there you guys go, Chapter 8 of Crimson Vow Story. Sorin has apparently succeeded in being a thorn in Olivia's side, spilling Sigarda's blood, disrupting the ritual, and freeing the angel. Well, obviously the entire affair is just now ruined. The most shocking part of this story was the surprise appearance of Katilda, or at least Katilda's spirit. Sorin noted that this wasn't a geist, but the actual spirit or soul of Katilda. We don't know exactly what that means, but perhaps it means the witch's spirit and body could again be rejoined. That Katilda isn't actually dead. At the end of Midnight Hunt, it was Olivia Voldaren who actually killed Katilda. But there was an aspect in which Kaya, a ghost hunter, witnessed Katilda's spirit leave her body, supposedly in a ritual before Olivia even attacked. So apparently, this was the Dawnheart Coven's final act to ensure Innistrad could survive. And with the spirit freeing Sigarda, it looks like that plan was a success. But what now? What will happen to the surviving vampires? Olivia and Edgar, or even Sorin? Last week's episode was another edition of FNL, Friday Night Lore, in which you fans entered for a chance to win a copy of Olivia Crimson Bride. Choosing a comment at random from last week's episode, the winner of FNL is Michael Collins. Congratulations. Look for a pinned comment on this video and I'll reach out to you. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting our free content here by liking, subscribing, and sharing the video online. We are getting really close to 100,000 subscribers here on the channel, so let's push to grow this community further. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!